The NFL offseason is quickly approaching, and with the offseason quickly approaching, there are bound to be different teams in different states across the NFL. Teams like the Texans and Bears are clearly rebuilding, while others are trying to push for a championship. Some franchises believe they are very close to a Super Bowl and will make what they believe are the correct decisions to get that much closer to a Lombardi trophy. Going all in can either pan out beautifully like it did for the 2021 Los Angeles Rams, or it can fail miserably like the 2022 Denver Broncos. And in today's video, we are going to discuss a couple of NFL teams that could be the next team to go all in and push for a Super Bowl trophy. And even with the Rams' downfall this year, the trade to acquire Matt Stafford was a success because they reached the end goal. But what team will be next? Well, there's a lot to break down, and without further ado, let's begin. And the first team we are going to discuss in today's video is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers going all in makes a lot of sense, as they have been chasing the Kansas City Chiefs for some time, which dates back to the Phillip Rivers era, as the Chiefs have won the AFC West every year since 2015. And the NFL has completely changed since then, but the Chiefs have remained on top all this time. And the Chargers were swept by Kansas City this year, but they have been extremely close to beating them multiple times over the past few years. A lot of the time after teams become good, and for multiple years like the Chiefs have, for example, almost beating them is a lot of teams' Super Bowl. And an example would be the Texans taking them to overtime earlier this year. But the Chargers are 10-6 at the time this video releases and have not one, but two 3-point losses to the Chiefs in 2022. And had those games gone the other way, they very easily could have, by the way, they would be division champs. If we take a quick trip down memory lane and go all the way back to week 2, which seems like forever ago at this point, the Chargers lost to KC by a score of 27-24. It was the first Amazon game on Thursday night, and it was also the game Justin Herbert was playing hurt and threw a pass out of bounds late in the game, only to deliver an absolute dime on the very next play. It was a very good game, like they almost always are between these two teams, but what also happened in this game was a crucial 99-yard pick six from Jalen Watson. We always hear the cliche that a play here or a play there could change the entire ballgame, and this certainly was the case, and unfortunately for the Chargers, it did. And it always seems when the Chargers and Chiefs play that somehow, someway, something will go the Chiefs' way, and they'll catch a break and end up winning the game. And back in week 2, it did. And in week 11 when these teams played, Patrick Mahomes led a game-winning drive and threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Travis Kelce with 30 seconds left for Kansas City to improve to 8-2, while LA dropped to 5-5. Since then, LA has won 5 of 6 and is considerably hot entering the playoffs. And to be completely honest, I don't expect LA to run the table this year, because that would imply they win playoff games in a combination of Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Kansas City, all in consecutive weeks, and I don't think that's realistic for them or for anyone else. And you may be wondering, okay, here we are again discussing how a team can beat the Chiefs and how they should go all in to beat them, which is completely fair. But here's why it's different this year. Justin Herbert is 26th in the NFL in yards per attempt at 6.7, and there's a reason Austin Eckler gets a ton of catches out of the backfield. Joe Lombardi, the Chargers offensive coordinator, severely limits what Herbert can do, and so does the personnel of the Chargers roster. They have no burner. They have no guy that can really stretch the field. So in a lot of ways, Herbert is very limited as to what he can do as a quarterback. You wouldn't want Keenan Allen running deep routes and Justin throwing it into double coverage just to try and push the ball downfield. And obviously that's an exaggeration, but the point stands. They need a guy that can stretch the field in the worst way. Justin Herbert's contract is also going to become a point of discussion across the NFL very, very soon. He was drafted in 2020, and the decision to pick up his 5th year will be this offseason, which the Chargers will, of course, pick up. But they could extend Herbert as early as this offseason, and we will soon find out how much Justin will be taking up of the salary cap. To be clear, his extension and ultimately the salary cap number would not increase for a couple of years, but the concept of having a quarterback on a cheap contract is coming to an end very, very soon. Even if the Chargers have to overpay, they should do it, because Justin being 26th in yards per attempt is awful, and there is no reason for it. And by overpay, I mean to acquire a player to help Justin, not overpay for Justin, though if they had to overpay for Justin, that would also make sense. A player that would make sense for them to trade for would have been somebody like Marquise Brown. Obviously, he was traded last offseason, so that's kind of off the table now, but you get the point. The Chargers having a deep threat defenses have to account for would open up the offense in a big way, and this on top of Justin Herbert's contract soon expiring makes me believe LA will go all in this offseason. Next up is the Baltimore Ravens, and this team's situation could get ugly. And for as much overall success as the Ravens have had over the past 10 to 15 years, there could be some sparks flying this offseason, which of course will revolve around quarterback Lamar Jackson's contract. And over the past few games, it's been evident the Ravens need to pay Lamar Jackson, and this question will be brought up later. But what do you do if you don't pay your quarterback? It's in some ways a damned if you do, damned if you don't pay Lamar in this case, and the damned if you don't pay him is obvious. The Ravens can't put up points with Tyler Huntley as the quarterback, and I understand Ravens fans will push back and call for the firing of offensive coordinator Greg Roman. And guys, listen, I agree with you, Greg Roman should be fired. But the personnel he is working with is not a lot offensively. As I record this, the Ravens' top receivers are Demarcus Robinson, Deshaun Jackson, and Sammy Watkins in the year 2023. But the thing to remember here is Tyler Huntley and Greg Roman can both be bad at the same time, and it does not have to be one or the other. And at this point, I don't see any way the Ravens don't pay Lamar, because they have a clear glimpse of what life is like without him, and it stinks. Losing Rashad Bateman for the year as early as they did hurts, as in the games Rashad was active, the Ravens were averaging 28.2 per game, and having a receiver that can at least keep defenses occupied or have a legit threat to account for makes a difference. And of course, that will be a big narrative surrounding the 2023 Ravens team, and that is whether or not Rashad Bateman can stay healthy. And the same applies to Lamar as well, because there is a crowd out there that feels he should not be paid because he has played 24 games over the past 2 years. But the Ravens have the Bengals to worry about in the division, and while the Bengals are division champs, the Ravens beat them when they came to Baltimore earlier in the year. So unlike a lot of the NFL where's this, oh man, we don't want to play Cincinnati because of Joe Burrow and the boys, I'm not saying the Ravens are clamoring to play them, but they certainly aren't afraid of them. And this video will be released prior to Week 18, so if in the chance you watch this and the Bengals beat a team led by Tyler Huntley, for clarity, this means a healthy Ravens team. But the Ravens are also in a situation where they have a good head coach, and some fans are frustrated with John Harbaugh as they have just one playoff win since 2015. But they more than likely would not hire anybody better than John Harbaugh. So with Lamar's contract, the state of the receiving corps, and the head coach, guys, I think that leaves Baltimore with one option, and that's going all in this offseason. From Baltimore to Tampa we go, and this one may catch you off guard, so hear me out on this one. This will of course revolve around quarterback Tom Brady, who will be an unrestricted free agent this offseason. And there is of course a chance Tom comes back next year, and even in the scenario he doesn't, I still think this team is in a prime position to go all in. Yes, the Bucs are 8-8 and have given up more points than they've scored, but some of these problems are fixable, and I think this is what the front office will convince themselves of this offseason, that hey, if we fix a couple of things that went wrong during some of these games, we were a couple of plays away from going 11-6, and the narrative around this season changes. And as we know, anything can happen in the postseason. This would of course start at the quarterback position by either bringing back Tom Brady or signing or trading for another veteran. And until the veterans of the quarterback market, most notably Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo, find a new home this offseason, they will be linked to any team that could potentially get a new quarterback. It will be that way for the next few months. But the point here is I don't see any way the Bucs try and trade up from the early 20s in the draft into the top 7 or 8 picks to get Will Levis, as I think both Bryce Young and CJ Stroud will be long gone by the time Tampa would even consider trading up. So with this roster they have, with veterans like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Vita Vea among others, and in the division they're in with Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold, and Desmond Ridder, what exactly would the Bucs be gaining by trying to rebuild with a roster that has several good veteran players, and Pro Bowl players at that, to say, yeah guys, we're trying to revamp for 2024? And the point is, they're not. And I do think the Bucs are handcuffed into this position of going all in. Because if they were to try and rebuild, that's something I don't think you can half-ass, and I do think it would be a complete sell of the roster, and the Bucs would essentially do an Oklahoma City Thunder method where they acquire all of these picks down the road. And in the NFL, I don't think we will ever see that type of sell, at least not to that degree. The Bucs coaching has also been bad at times this year, as during the Browns game, a game they ultimately lost, can be summed up in one drive or in one decision-making process. The Bucs had 4th and 2 on Cleveland's 37-yard line, meaning they could either go for it to try and keep the drive alive, or even attempt a 54-yard field goal, which on the road would have been difficult, but not impossible. And if you're wondering which of the two decisions Todd Bowles made on this, it was actually neither, as he took a delay of game to punt from the 42. And instead of pinning the Browns deep in their own territory, guys, it gets better. It was a touchback. And a lot of the time this year, Bowles has coached not to lose, and a lot of the time, due to decisions like this, they've lost. So if the Bucs get a new coaching staff and make more aggressive decisions, not to mention get healthier across the offensive line in 2023, the Bucs could very easily make a run next year. And honestly, because of all this, I think they will go all in this offseason to try to make it 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel because it would mean the world. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.